It's usually a third person that affects me. I signed up for this. This is the price you pay of those decisions, the stress, the late nights and early mornings. It's the disappointment. Hmm. People that I've invested in or I relied upon that just do not follow through. I don't expect them to have my company tattooed on their chest for the rest of their lives, but they have a certain job here. We rely upon them. And so that's what concerns me. Now, in regards to my own health and persistence and endurance, I do need to decompress. I do need Richard time. So I work out in the mornings, wash my convertible on Sundays. I'm an avid classic antique pinball player. So I do pinball machine marathons when I get a chance. And I'm not so hard on myself. Devin,
Hey everyone, this is Devin Miller here with another episode of The Inventive Growth. I'm your host, Devin Miller, the serial entrepreneur that's grown several startups into 7- and 8-figure businesses, as well as the founder and CEO of Miller IP Law, where we help startups and small businesses with their patents and trademarks. You ever need help with yours? Just go to strategymeeting.com, grab some time with us to chat, and we're always here to help. Now, today we have another great guest on the podcast, Richard Blank. And Richard, we're going to be talking a little bit about how the businesses continue to evolve and grow over the past several months and period of time. And that will include how they were financially responsible and avoided debt and having the resources at hand that are needed. And also talk a little bit about how they are avoiding the fast track to money and setting up for things for the long term, and following up on contracts and meeting your end of the deal and bringing on new people and letting others go, and learning the value of transparency, and also a bit maybe of the shift between virtual and remote workers. So should definitely be a great conversation. And with that much as an introduction, welcome on the podcast, Richard.
hey, Devin, so happy to be here. Inventive Growth, got so much to share, and you really gave a full plate of information that I'll be sharing with your guests today.
Absolutely. It'll certainly make for a great conversation and good discussion. So diving in just a bit and kind of unpacking that a bit more. But before we do that, just for those that haven't caught, and just as a reminder to the audience, Richard has been a guest on several of our sister podcasts, including The Inventive Journey, The Inventive Expert, and The Inventive Founder. So if you haven't had a chance to go check out some of those episodes on the sister podcast, definitely encourage you to do so. But before we dive in, just take a minute to just quickly introduce yourself to the audience, a little bit about who you are and then what you do.
Well, once again, I really appreciate being a guest here. My name is Richard Blank. I'm the proud CEO of Costa Rica's call center. We're a bilingual, dedicated nearshore call center located in Costa Rica. We handle outbound sales, appointment setting, lead generation, inbound customer support, back office support, and non-office. What we've done is come February 6th, I'll be celebrating my 16th year in business. It's been a good run, a lot of twists and turns, very interesting industry that I kind of fell into. But I tell you what, if you can use some old school coaching in the way that we were raised by our parents and grandparents, there's no reason why the technology will assist my company culture and enable me to last so long.
Awesome. Well, great introduction. Looking forward to our conversation. And so, as I'd mentioned in previous episodes, as well as when we talked with you, Richard, is the inventive growth is kind of, so you get the business founded, you get it going, you get it up and running. You get it beyond the idea stage, and then you kind of hit into the next phase, which is, okay, now how do I grow the business, and what is that like, and how is that continuing to go, and kind of focus on that. And one of the areas that you'd mentioned on as you were kind of getting into that growth stage, that was beneficial to your business, is kind of avoiding debt and also having the resources in place that allow you to grow. And so walk us through a little bit as to kind of how you guys had that in place, and then how that impacted the growth of the business.
I mean, it's quite interesting. You can easily overextend yourself or be suckered into doing things where you're paying interest on it, or people can remove it for you. So what I decided to do initially in my business was to rent a turnkey station from a blended center. So it's almost like a glorified internet cafe. I could, have the coffee, the backup IT support, the turnkey station. It just wasn't private. But I was able to scale there and let someone else pay for that infrastructure, the server room, and and startup costs. But after a couple of years, I was paying top dollar and I had a lot of stable clients, and it was time for me to rent space, not buy the space yet, but rent the space to grow to a couple hundred agents. Now in my industry, I'm exceptionally fortunate. I can grow with used furniture and computers. And
Mm.
so for me, I was able to get stuff for pennies on the dollar that were pretty much brand new. And so just in that way, I was able to scale a company. It's like you never want to buy a brand new car. I mean, it loses its value. So I did that for about 6 years. And I saved enough money, grew even more stable clients to decided, years ago to purchase this building, throw on a third floor and update it to a standard call center. But I always wanted to have a reserve, at least a couple months worth of payroll, not just for end of year expenses. We have something called the aguinaldo. It's a 13th month. You got to pay them that bonus, plus other sort of insurances. I got to make sure I had that cushion, because if you don't have that, imagine if you don't pay somebody. Secondly, you're making bad decisions in order to pay your lights and just wanted to make sure that I could breathe. That's number one. And then also, I'm a guest here. I do not have home court advantage as I would in the United States, Philadelphia, or Arizona. So I needed an A team. I needed locals. I needed face men. And so I had individuals such as human resources, accountants, attorneys, and people out there looking to get me the best deals, assisting me to grow. And so it was really about a leap of faith to delegate and to mesh our Anglo-Saxon Northern culture with this Central America Latino culture, taking the best of both and seeing what we could do to make this a company. Because it's almost like an 80s sitcom. There's always these funny misinterpretations like Three's Company and things that might be taken out of step. And so it's very important to make sure you have boundaries, you have target dates, you have accountability. And if you have these things, it's very easy to have checkpoints to reduce any sort of spillage, a lot of preventative measures. And I'm not a genius, Devin. You're the smart guy that went to law school. I would have probably cheated off you in school. But the thing is, for me, I realized that if you treat people with empathy and you give them benefits of the doubt, sometimes there's wiggle room in regards to the labor law, nothing severe, but if someone's 2 minutes late, it shouldn't be a deal breaker. You shouldn't fire them for that. And so by giving certain second and third chances that I were given growing up and molding, it's enabled me to preserve certain people so they don't spin out of control. It's very labor intensive. You invest so much in somebody, and the worst thing to have is someone leave you without any sort of 2 weeks notice or just something that's unexpected. And so besides the technical side of it, if you have nobody showing up to work, you have no company. And so I wanted to ensure that initially I created a certain company culture where people felt like they belonged and they weren't expendable like some of the larger call centers. And so that's always been my $1 million bit of advice: to get out of your ivory tower offices and walk your roads and know people's names and, acknowledge the work that they're doing that's putting wind in your sails. And that's a good, those are ones that are budding people and paying it forward so they can grow and become future leaders.
No, I think that's all definitely some great piece of advice and insight as to how to go about growing. Now, I'm going to circle back just to where we started originally or initially, which is, so now if you're taking, I assume, and help us if we're wrong. So did you completely avoid debt, never took out a penny in your name? Did you just minimize it? Did you bootstrap it and take on the buying all the used and grow it or pay as you go? Or was there a point where you said, hey, okay, now I have to take out some debt, but I'm going to, take out a loan and minimize it? So, and what kind of flexibility did that give you as you took that approach?
Wouldn't have made any difference at all if I took out loans for hundreds of thousands of dollars. I was still pacing in the amount of clients I was getting. I could have advertised more. What difference would it have made? My main thing is, to me, is natural growth. And so maybe it was just my old school Eastern European philosophy that was taught to me by my family. But if you can't pay for it in cash, you just don't do it. And I think it's very funny when you see repossessions of cars and people that lose their homes. And I think it's wonderful that they have dreams and they put money down and pay monthly. But once again, it's not stable. I would rather own the dirt underneath my feet than a building that could be taken away from me. I'm crazy like that, I guess. I acted my wage. I never overextended myself. I never paid a penny of interest. Sure, I took credit cards out. I did it for my credit score and for free first class flights and all those other benefits, but it was really just for proper accounting purposes. Um, I tell you what, when you move certain areas of the world, if it's second or third world, sometimes you don't need to keep up with certain Joneses or you don't have certain pressures. And so for me here, it really wasn't about having the fanciest showroom. And I understand that some of these large call centers, Amazon, for an example, has the best real estate in town, but it's like Rocky 3. In the best gym, but not focused. You get beat up by Clubber. You go with Apollo Creed to, like, let's say a Blue Horizon or some Philly place that you work out in with leaking pipes. You have the best workout of your life and you find the eye of the tiger. You don't throw money at those sort of shiny objects and bells and whistles. You really need to pay the people or pay them in experience for their own growth, because having gold, door handles doesn't help the employee at all, doesn't pay it forward to them at all. And so for me, it was more about education. And I believed that if I really invested in this second language and gave them more stability and strategy and diplomacy, I could make them more marketable. But in regards to finances, sure, there's a lot of pressure there to rent the top places, but those places are super empty right now. But here's something that's quite interesting, Devin, you're going to love this. I was thinking of growth, right? Pre-COVID. So I almost packed my 300-seat center and I was literally looking at another location that would have probably run me tens of thousands of dollars a month in rent. But when COVID hit, it completely changed the market for hybrid to purely virtual. We could handle it through the technology, remove this energy and this sort of, camaraderie that you have. But I mean, that's just the change of the business. So one thing, which was enormous for me, was that additional commercial real estate costs, which I'm never going to have to do again. I can put 300 people in my center. I got about 50. And I mean, the rest of the space, the 250 seats is, for onboarding in case someone's got a problem at home or people just want to be here. But it's a beautiful cushion for me right now and a huge expense that would have been. But, things change in this industry. The leverage is with the agent right now. They want to work from home. They have the metrics to back it up. I'll just never get to know you. And so I believe there's that extra 10% you get when you work out with someone in the gym. You get them to do something, you get the best out of them. So we're removing that essential element, which made this brick and mortar such an advantage. But that's the kind of way I see it. You could literally do this business on a monthly basis as long as you're paying your expenses and you make your margin. It's not glamorous, but it's controllable. And you can do things like that. And also, mind you, my company's inscribed in the United States. So I'm earning in the States while living here. There's something called bona fide residency, where you're tax exempt for your first $110,000 that you earn outside of the country. And so imagine me and my wife, that's $250,000 right there that we're not even paying taxes on. Combining that with 401ks, Roth IRAs, and any sort of business expenses, besides the sacrifice of being far from your family and certain luxuries of the United States, you can make a killing here offshore. And just what you save and what you're able to pay. And so those are the sort of investments that you have to make as well, thinking about it. So there's so many different areas in which you can offset certain costs, earn more money, have less costs, and be able to expand. And I could have never done something like this in the United States at the pace and the size that I was thinking of doing. And also, my man, Devin, most people do not like telemarketers in the United States. They see it as a transitional job. And a lot of my clients, if not most, have made that comment that it's very difficult for them to find a dedicated long-term player in the United States. They just don't want to do it. And so I've heard that a lot more lately, because in Costa Rica, it pays more than most jobs. So I can get people with amazing college degrees that are here that have amazing skill sets.
No, that definitely or sounds like a lot of great advantages. Now, kind of going along with some of what you said, one of the other things that we talked about, kind of as you're going through the growth phase and continue to go through the growth phase, is there's opportunities to kind of take the quick money or the fast track, and then there's setting things up for the long term. And there's trade-offs, and quick money is is just that, it's quick and sometimes it's easier, but it doesn't always mean that it sets you up for the long term. So walk us through a little bit, as the business was growing and expanding and evolving, how or what kind of were those opportunities, or I don't know, opportunity in a good way, but to take the fast track or the quick money, and also how did you deal with those?
It's like the apple in the Garden of Eden. Do you bite it or do you not? And as much as I wanted to grow my business, I'll tell you what, the majority of the prospecting inbound calls that I got, I rejected. It's for multiple reasons. One is I think they had unrealistic expectations. B, it was very gray area and I was not going to be their phone guy. Or it just wasn't a good fit. And as much as I want to impress you and my family of the new business you get, I think, Devin, you'd be, happier with me for the business I turn away. And it's a small country, it's a Catholic country. And I just want to make sure that I preserve my reputation. I have nothing against these 5 industries, but I will mention to you, they have centers here. It's sports books, casinos, stocks, pharmacies, and sweepstakes. We don't do those. And so to ask about fast money, sure, I can get someone whose lack of preparation is now my emergency. They have a sense of urgency. They have problems at the 10 other call centers that they used prior to me. And what's the difference in me? All you're going to do is have some supervisors screaming at us, cursing at us, and causing attrition. And so really it's about the reverse, almost like you counsel when you're speaking with your clients. You want to make sure they're being forthright with you and you're going to win the case. I got to make sure you're giving me the proper resources to present it to the labor pool, and also that I can fulfill your needs. It's not that I don't want your account. I love the money, but ethically, I got to make sure you got enough gas to get to the beach. And, I sometimes have to be forthright and a straight shooter with people. And they'll tell me about someone in their office named Jasmine that can do 50 an hour. But in my mind, when I break down the metrics and ask them certain things, I realize that they're over exaggerating the play. And I can't take that. I have to make sure that the soldier has their pace, that it's realistic, that we're specific, measurable, agreed upon, realistic, and time frame oriented. If something is out of that, then I won't be able to sell it to the market. They'd rather choose another center, and I can't hire staff for you. And so it's very interesting, the calls I get. It's very interesting, the sort of tone that people have in their scripts, or they're thinking that if they just borrow some lines from the Wolf of Wall Street, Glengarry Glen Ross, or Boiler Room, that can transcribe into real life, and trying to cold call close people like Vin Diesel, telling you I should send the check to your house, to your mansion. That's cute, but it's also not realistic. And so I try to not compromise ethics, values, or morals, and readjust tones with clients to ensure that we can prolong conversations and hopefully have conversion ratios. And so for me, it's very, very fun to see what people are bringing to me and what their thoughts are. And as much as I'd love to collect them all and be at thousands, personally, I don't feel like I would be able to fulfill their needs. So I wouldn't be able to take those accounts.
So it sounds like, for to maybe kind of summarize that or condense it, a lot of where it comes is, you could take the quick money, the accounts where they think, that they are going to do, whether it's less ethical, not even ethical, but just less effective, or maybe you take advantage of them because there's a sense of urgency, or, you can give them an unrealistic expectation as to what can be accomplished. And yet, short term, you might be able to land the client or get the money, but long term, then it sets you up to bad reputation, bad experience, and isn't going to be rewarding or help out the client in the long term. Is that kind of a fair summary?
Of course. Do you have 4,000 unique numbers for us to call on a monthly basis on a 5-minute talk time so I can flip the list legally 3 times? Because if you only have 500 numbers, even if I slow walk it, manual dial it, marinate it, and due diligence it, it's not going to last a month. So how am I going to have you for a year? And how am I going to keep this person busy? How am I going to not keep them from being frustrated, lowering the morale, ruining your expectations? And so um, you have to give us the ammunition. And it's not expensive. I mean, there are suggestions, but there is a lead flow and there is coaching. There's quality assurance when we listen to your recordings to see what people's reactions are. Hopefully, when we do a hot lead transfer, set up an appointment, you're following through on it. Because if you're dropping the ball, we're all losing. And it's just maybe they're not used to it. It's like muscle memory or going back to the gym. You have the motivation, but it burns. It takes a lot. Hundreds of calls on a daily basis on a predictive dialer month after month as well. And so you have to let them know of our resources and our capabilities. Are you capable of feeding the machine? Okay? Are you capable of growing? Don't throw it back on me. I mean, sometimes the list is so old, people have been dead for 8 years. So when I call Billy back, I go, yo, man, you told me this list is 2 weeks old. Mr. Jones has been dead for 8 years, and most of the numbers are disconnected. And so those are the sort of things that come out in the wash. But I tell you what, if people follow a certain procedure and they get good leads and they have nice email templates and voicemail templates, nice email addresses, they do the proper phone calls, it's very easy to build a business. And so these are the sort of, I guess you almost have to debrief somebody because they're coming from either a bad environment, a bad supervisor, or someone just is a terrible boss with unrealistic expectations. And that's kind of where we have to begin with people, just to have that sort of transparency, just to make sure that I have enough to work for 160 hours in a month.
No, I think that definitely is a lot of great piece of advice and a lot of good insight. So we could go on for a while and it would be a great conversation. And but to keep it at a manageable bite, and we'll have to have you back on to a future episode. But for this one, we're already reaching that point of towards the end of the episode.
Oh, you got to be kidding me! Come on,
I know,
David, I
it
got more
flies by.
time. You can't throw me off so fast. It's not like a half an hour CBS show.
Oh, I could talk for hours, and I always figure, I'm like, I would probably find it interesting. I'd have an enjoyable time, and everybody would start to tune out and say, oh, they're just going on and on and on. So we'll have to have you back on so that we can or dive into some of the other areas that we didn't even get a touch on. But as we do wrap up this episode, I always do like to wrap it up with one question. So we'll jump to that now, which is, as you're in a business, don't care what it is, how or what the industry is or what you're doing, there are always points in time within the business that you get worn out. That can be from working too many hours. It can be from doing things or having to deal with a lot of problems and putting out a lot of fires. It can be from, taking on too many responsibilities. A lot of different things can cause to be worn out or burned out a little bit with the business. And so when you hit those periods in time with the business, what do?
It's usually a third person that affects me. I signed up for this. This is the price you pay of those decisions, the stress, the late nights and early mornings. It's the disappointment. People that I've invested in or I relied upon that just do not follow through. I don't expect them to have my company tattooed on their chest for the rest of their lives, but they have a certain job here. We rely upon them. And so that's what concerns me. Now, in regards to my own health and persistence and endurance, I do need to decompress. I do need Richard time. So I work out in the mornings, wash my convertible on Sundays. I'm an avid classic antique pinball player. So I do pinball machine marathons when I get a chance. And I'm not so hard on myself, Devin, because I have good intentions and good faith. And it's almost like playing a perfect hand of blackjack. Sometimes just the odds are not in your favor. And so for me, I don't double down on bad. If I have a hard time looking in someone's eyes, we're kind of ruined. I mean, I understand that life happens, but deliberately hurt me, or you had a moment to really think about the consequences of your decisions and realize that a relationship isn't worth it, we're good. I'm never going to beg. And so for me, some of my setbacks have been my investment individuals that I thought had fidelity and were going to be with me. But then again, it's also maturity. That's part of growing up, is accepting those sort of hits. And it's not what happens to you, my good friend, it's how you react to them. And I like to judge good character during chaos, because being from Philadelphia, I really did not have impulse control. I'd be the first person to throw snowballs at Santa and tell you to F yourself. But since I've grown up, moved abroad, and seen some things, it's readjusted myself to a little bit more of a center and a balance. And I guess I take more breaths and I listen more. And just hopefully by allowing somebody to refocus and get into the now, they might snap out of it and realize that an apology is needed. Someone needs to take a time out, or possibly the following day. And I've seen this multiple times where people will knock on my office door, ask to speak with me, apologize. And the kind of thing where they just want to start again. And they realize they shed some skin, and if capable, they can learn from that. And I guess we could do a podcast on all the times you and I got in trouble and broke windows and got sent to the principal's office. But I also see myself and other people that have that sort of thing in their eye. They realize they made a mistake. It wasn't intentional. And they just want to know how to get better. And that's been good for me. It's put a lot of my past to rest, where you don't have a heavy heart, where you could almost forgive yourself for your discretions in the past by fixing things in the present. And that's how I've been able to do this, my friend. That's my psychology, philosophy, and balance to preserve. Because you're talking about a call center and large attritions. And I could have quit a long time ago. But I do this still because of the art of speech. I think it's funny how people are loving to text and to chat and prefer not to speak with people. While I believe that the best relationships are interpersonal, when people really are anchoring and communicating. So maybe it's a buggy whip or passe or just a fading flower, but damn it, I will try to continue this song and dance as long as possible, because I believe that these are the sort of soft skills that can enhance somebody's life outside of the office to help grow. And so that's my mission. That's my vision quest. It's not about money. I've made enough money. Golden jewels lose its luster. What am I looking for right now? I'm looking to pay it forward and to, I guess, recenter myself at a second stage of life now, Devin.
Awesome.
And I hope that makes sense. And
No, it definitely does. It was a great insight as to how to continue to stay excited within the business and last it out and enjoy it along the way. So definitely great piece of advice, great takeaway. Well, now as we do wrap up the episode, if people want to reach out to you, they want to be a customer, they want to be a client, they want to be an employee, they want to be an investor, they want to be your next best friend, any or all of the above, what's the best way to reach out to you, contact you, find out more?
You should buy a first-class plane ticket and fly down and come visit me in Costa Rica. That's number one. I also have an extremely large Facebook fan page, about 120,000 local Costa Rican ticos. So it'll give your audience a chance to understand the business process outsourcing industry in Central America. But the beauty of this is I have no seminar or a book. Most people don't even need telemarketers. I'm your buddy, Devin. You know, I put wind in your sails and I love your show. And so I'm here to support a very good friend of mine, and also just to let your audience know not to be hard on yourself, to hang in there. And just like Rocky, you got to go the distance. And so if you follow through, don't be surprised if good things happen to you.
Awesome. Well, I definitely encourage people to go out, get that plane ticket, and go see Richard in person. But if nothing else, check him out on Facebook. Is great ways to connect. So Thank you again for coming on the podcast. It's been fun. It's been a pleasure. Now, for all of you, the listeners that are out there, if you can help us to share this expertise and this information with even more startups and small businesses to help them along their journey to success, make sure to click share, subscribe, and leave a review for the podcast. As well as along your journey, if you ever need help with patents or trademarks or anything else to your startup, your small business, just go to strategymeeting.com, grab some time with us to chat, and we're always here to help. Thank you again, Richard, for coming on the podcast, and wish the next leg of your journey even better than the last.
My man.